Oh,
All right.
hello.
Hello, Dr. Tronic. How are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. But I'll just turn down the volume for the game a little bit now that we are doing the interview portion. And am I speaking? Is it really that quiet? Here, let me crank that a bit. Okay. Hopefully that's not too loud. All right. So let's take a look at Elementical. I've already played through the game just a few times to get onto the high score and to just get a general feel for the game. And hello, Bart Moon. Yes, thank you. I am back. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, I don't know why I'm so quiet. I'm gonna try maybe turn my gain up a bit. Let's see if this makes. Oh, there we go. Okay, my gain was down by quite a lot. So I think that was just because I was like talking to some people on Google Meets and they're like, "Oh, your mic is too loud." I'm like, "Okay, I'll turn it down," but everyone else says this is fine, so I don't know why. As a first impression, you really like the art? Yeah. So the art was made by one of your teammates, right, Dr. Tronic?
Yes, the art was made multiple teammates, so everyone had like a focus.
Mm-hmm.
Character design is from Gina Türlich. Here, enemy design from wait, I don't remember. Cybic
Mm-hmm.
or Cubic. Yes, everyone had like a specialized role. This was also the first time where we had 7 teammates, so the
Wow.
biggest team I've been so far.
Yeah. Wow. So the previous games that you've worked on, how many people were in those teams?
I've been into 5-man teams.
Mm-hmm.
Then the last semester was a 6-man team, and now we're up to 7. The school is growing now. There were 7 teams, 7 people per team on average, and
Mm-hmm.
33 teams. So it's getting bigger each semester.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, like, how many people, so there's 33 teams and therefore 33 submissions, right?
There are only 32 submissions. One team didn't make it.
Oh no. Okay, I was just trying to click, here we go, submissions tab. That's still a pretty good ratio though, if, I don't know, like, I don't think I asked this before, but are these jams like an informal process of the school, or are they like, is there any grading component to these?
They are like a formal event. Like everyone has to participate. It's
Mm-hmm.
like a group projects in regular school, and
Mm-hmm.
they are graded. So
Uh-oh.
I don't know what goes into the grading and things, but it's not as important in the final grade. But they are graded, and you
Okay.
can get feedback and like which what could have been better and so on and so forth.
I was like, did your team earn a $5 Steam gift card?
Yes, we're gonna get the $5 Steam gift card.
Okay,
We haven't gotten it yet, but we're gonna get it.
is that $5 each or $5 for your
Each.
whole? Okay, I was
No,
gonna say
$5 each.
it'd be a little ridiculous if there's a 7-person team and you get a single €5 Steam gift card to split.
That would have been
Um,
painful.
yeah. Also, Gina Turlich, please correct me on the pronunciation, but yes, hello, welcome to the stream. If you have a game that you would like to submit, everyone is welcome to do so. Um, yeah, Bart Moon's question about what happens to the team that didn't finish. I mean, I assume it's not going to be a great grade.
Probably depends on what happens in the team. You also get graded for like the amount of effort and things. So just because maybe the game didn't make it or there was like a horrible team performance or something, some of the games are broken as well. Doesn't mean that it's automatically like a fail. You still tried the jam week, try to work as a group, so that gets graded as well.
Yeah, I guess the important thing is that for most people, the objective obviously is to hang on, it's a 3D jam, right?
A what jam?
So how many days is the jam?
It's a 4-day jam. It was from Tuesday to Saturday morning.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that there is like partial credit possible for the effort put into the game, but I also know that having the game run like so. I guess, yeah, why don't we get into that a bit? Because I assume that you haven't received any marks or grading for this project yet.
I haven't. I haven't checked in the like school intranet, but I guess we'll get. I think we'll not really get feedback like from them, but we can ask them like what could we improve. It's not that, so the feedback component or like grading component is not that big of a part in this jam. The most important thing is just learn how to work in a team.
Right.
And now, especially with 7 people, it was like communication gets hard sometimes. There have been more miscommunications than usual this time. But that is like part of why we do these jams, to learn to communicate with people. Since it's also random with the people we get, we can make some wishes who we want in our team, but mostly it's random or like hand-picked because the teachers know everyone. But it's like, yeah, you probably don't even know the people you're working with, so you have 2 days before the jam begins. You'll get to know your team. Like they'll post this is the teams, and then you meet up, look what everyone wants to do in the jam. Yeah, and then it's already beginning, basically.
So are you actually working with people who are in like different years in the program, so to speak?
Yes, it's also like mostly the semesters that have to participate are the ones from 1 to 5. The 6th semester are they can choose to not participate, and people that have already graduated can also come back as legends and can make like a legend team.
Oh, that's fun. I like that. I think it is not just to make an entire team of legends, but to have a quote-unquote more senior member on the team to sort of guide things. But I also understand the value of like you need to figure it out for yourself. So I can see the reasons for and against that.
We did actually have a legend in one team, and they specifically asked for like first semester people so they can teach them something.
Nice. Yeah, so this game. Okay. So I just had the clarification that I'm playing the game that you worked on. That the username is it? Do you know how to say it, Dr. Tronic? It looks like
Gina Türlich.
Gina Türlich. Okay.
Yes, it's 2 words. Like Gina is a name, and natürlich is a German word.
Okay. I wasn't sure whether it was like lich, as in like a monster lich, or whether that was supposed to be lich. So sorry for the continuous mispronunciations there. But Gina, thank you for coming on the stream. I'm glad that you're here while I'm checking out the game. Let me just double check. What was your role on the project?
Gina made the player character and also the awesome itch.io page.
Oh yeah, I did see this was very fancy. Super fancy.
This is the most fancy itch.io page that I've ever had in a game.
Nice. Yeah, I realize there's actually been quite a little bit of chat, so I'm going to take a look at that real quick. Yeah, Dark Demon Gamer asking if it's infinite. Yes, it is. And I don't know. A trailer for the game, is that a factor at all? Because I know sometimes for like the really big teams on MoonArtyre and GMTK, people have time to actually like put together a trailer to entice others to try out their game, but I don't know. Do they put any emphasis on that in your program?
There was no emphasis on like trailers, like encourage or something. I didn't even have the idea of a trailer until now. So mostly trailers are not a big thing, but itch.io like is important to make a fancy itch.io page.
Yeah, I guess just in general, is there any facet of the program that you're in that does emphasize, like, show you how to put together a trailer, or? Like just
We don't
generally marketing your game?
Marketing is more like how do we make the HIO page fancy, and what are some rules and guidelines we have to use, like to make everything fit in the HIO page.
Mm-hmm.
Like how to use the banner so it includes with the rest of the page.
Mm-hmm.
But trailers and stuff have not been mentioned. Not really.
Okay.
Or that's not something we learn.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure because like editing together a trailer. I mean, like editing is a whole discipline, obviously, but it's kind of handy to know how to do at least a little bit of it. So it just seems like something that could be useful, and I was curious whether they put any emphasis on that in your program or not.
Yeah, I can see that this would be useful. But I think that's something more like maybe in the 6th and 5th semester.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, currently we're still in the like learning phase. I'm in the 4th semester now, so we are still learning Unreal Engine. But the 5th and 6th semester is more like starting to get you independent, like choosing your tools and engines. And then 6th semester is like getting you into the game world and just really now you gotta figure it out.
Yeah,
so maybe that can be part of it.
I guess they and then you're sort of working on like a capstone project. I mean, you do multiple projects, like at least one project per semester, right?
Yes, big emphasis on our school is that at the end of the school you have a nice portfolio and you can show like a potential employer that in every major genre you have made one game, so you understand every major genre and the 2 major engines like Unity and Unreal Engine.
Yeah, I did notice that this was made in Unity, and are you up to like allowed to choose whichever engine you want?
In the jam, yes, we're allowed to choose.
Right, yeah, no, I know during regular school you do have to go with the one that you're being taught currently. That makes sense.
Yes, the first 2 semesters are Unity, 3rd and 4th semester are Unreal, and 5th and 6th is you can choose your own engine.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so they want you to get experience with each, but if you want to like specialize in a specific engine, that you're allowed to do that.
Correct.
Nice.
Yeah, and also, even though I'm currently still learning Unreal Engine, I was glad to be back in Unity for the jam. I think I'm also going to stick with Unity in the 5th and 6th semester. I just feel more at home with Unity.
Yeah, I was about to ask how you felt about that, because for my part, I only have experience with Unity. I don't have any experience with Unreal. Sorry, Bart Moon, I know that you use Unreal, but...
Unreal is cool, don't get me wrong, but I prefer Unity.
Yeah, I'm in this I'm in a similar space where like I've mentioned this before, but like if I just want something that's familiar and easy to develop in, I actually switch back to Game Maker, because Unity is what I use during the day for my like job, and it's just so much easier to put together a prototype if I'm just using a game engine that I like. I don't think it's much of an exaggeration to say I know almost every function in Game Maker. Even if I don't use all of them, I'm aware of the complete capabilities of the engine, and that's a very like good place to be. So the more familiar you are with any specific engine, I think it is good to sort of push yourself to learn the engine in its entirety, and not just not stay in the sort of like comfortable bubble of, oh, these are the kinds of games I always make, and these are the sort of functions and methodologies I always use. Like, there might be entirely other tool sets available to an engine that you use that might actually make some of the stuff that you do easier, and you're just never exposed to it because you don't go out and try for yourself. But again, I like the sound of the program that you're in, where they are encouraging you to make different games within the same engine, because naturally by making different games you probably do get exposed to those alternate methods that I'm describing.
Yeah, that's also like switching from Unity to Unreal. You get a great sense of like what the benefits of each engine are. For example, if I were to want to focus later on making 3D games, I would probably stick to Unreal, because like Unreal's 3D like level editor, let's call it that, or like scene view, controls much better than Unity's. It's just more comfortable to quickly block out the level instead of Unity's Pro Builder or just using Unity cubes. It's much better and much more comfortable in Unreal.
Interesting. Okay.
But when it comes to 2D games, I don't even have an idea how that is really possible in Unreal, and I've heard that Unity is better in 2D than Unreal.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sentiment that I get as well. I just want to acknowledge Bart Moon's comment here. It sounds cool that the school is focusing on portfolio building. Sounds weird to include various genres and various engines from my experience and talks with people. It seems like most look for a more focused portfolio tailored for what a company needs. That's interesting, and I'm not sure, like, it's from the experience that I have with, admittedly, like, the reason I got the job that I have right now is because I knew the people, I worked together with the people who were the founders of the studio. So that's how I got that specific job. So I don't take this advice as like gospel or anything, is what I'm trying to say. But the I know that there is value towards demonstrating that you know how to solve a large variety of problems. But then aside from that, you are absolutely right, Bart Moon, that like if somebody is making a 2D platformer game, they're going to want to see that you've made other 2D platformers and you know how to handle yourself when it comes to making games in that genre. So I guess that's what game jams are for, is you can start with a sort of broad scope, like understanding of lots of different kinds of games, and then narrow in on like, oh, there's this company that I really want to work for, then let me try making games in the genre that they usually make so that I can build out my portfolio to be specifically more impressive to them. So, oh yeah, and then the point that you just made there about for entry-level jobs having a more varied portfolio, yeah, that's true. I think that it's they do want to see that you have like that breadth of experience. At least that's what I would be looking for if I were just because it gets back to that point that I was making earlier about the breadth of different problems that you learn how to solve. So anyway, not to take us too far off on a tangent, but
yeah, I was thinking about that as well right now. I think what's also like important to remember in the school is like a lot of people that like join the first semester don't really know what game dev is really like, or what they really want to do. For example, what I learned through the school is that I actually do quite enjoy like making lore for games, or like the background story building, which I wouldn't have really experimented with on my own. So I see a lot of value in that in the school. And then if we really want to focus, get more focused, like our portfolio, like we know, like I now know that after getting into Unreal Engine, I now know that I want to use Unity and 2D games, and then I can use the 5th and 6th semester to make some more focused games in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's kind of the sentiment that I've come to as well, is that having used Unity as part of my day job for a 3D game, like it certainly works, but if you're looking for a specific kind of game, like the sort of AAA ultra realistic game, then I mean Unreal just has that out of the box, and it's such a pain to get it to work in Unity, and it feels like it would be in Unity's best interest to be like, hey, if you want something that's photorealistic, download this project and run it. And they do have like a 3D render pipeline demo that you can launch and unpack, but you still have to spend like hours tinkering with it to get it the way that you want, and it just, I don't understand why they don't have better templates available. But then again, I don't know how many
people are starting out trying to make AAA looking games in Unity. That's probably a pretty small audience now that I think about it.
I guess to also focus the first time we make a 3D game that we should keep it low poly, don't get into realism. Like the first 3D game is low poly and no textures, just solid colors, like as a guideline. Of course, if we are like super motivated and want to go beyond that and can prove ourselves that we're not just overconfident, then we are allowed to make that. But the guideline is for the first 3D game, low poly and no textures.
Yeah, I think that's like you said, it's a good guideline because they know that they're not setting expectations too high. If you just happen to have a background in 3D modeling and you want to experiment with that, then you're welcome to, obviously. They're not going to stop you from doing that. But yeah, just to finish off on the point that Bart Moon was making, I also did notice that at one point Unreal did have some support for 2D stuff and then kind of abandon it. And it really seems like Unity is going to be the last to admit it, but they are kind of like continuing to invest in the 2D component of their engine, and they're still like doing like 3D lighting, and look, you can do all kinds of fancy looking stuff with Unity lighting. But also, hey, look, there's a bunch of 2D tools that we're doing, like 2D lighting. It's like I really think Unity has been positioning itself to be the sort of go-to 2D engine to contrast against Unreal being the go-to 3D engine. And I think that's a good idea to double down on that, because I'm not convinced that Game Maker is all that great anymore. And aside from that, I mean, you've got Godot as well, but that's great for hobby projects. I'm a little sad that because Godot is open source, that means that there aren't good tools available to port games onto consoles, at least the last time I looked. Yeah, there was something I was seeing about like people, console manufacturers being like refusing to publish games made with, refusing to deliver SDKs for Godot because Godot is open source. But maybe I'm misquoting. Again, it's not to say that games made with Godot haven't been released on console. Like, there are porting services that will do it, but I think they either have to like run some kind of emulation layer, or otherwise these porting services just rebuild the game in some other engine, and I don't really know. So again, I know that Game Maker is not one of the big engines out there. I know that Unity and Unreal are probably the two biggest ones out there. But I wouldn't really know what else aside from those really stands as a contender for like the de facto 2D game engine.
I mean, to add to Godot, in the recent like year or so, I've been hearing more and more people use Godot or praise Godot. So maybe Godot is gonna become like a big contender, or like get even better in the 2D department. Because I feel like in like the recent year, I've been hearing more and more about Godot.
Oh, absolutely. I've been hearing more and more about it. It seems like the perfect either hobby game making toolkit, or if you want to release on Windows. And I'm not sure how it handles Mac. Probably Linux is fine as well, but again, Apple being another like walled garden, it's practically like dealing with a console manufacturer, just slightly more lenient. So, but I mean, let's be honest, how many people actually care about releasing games on Mac anyway?
Yeah.
Actually, I know that Apple just made announcements about Metal version 3 and having a sort of Proton-like layer that some people were saying is similar to the way that the Steam Deck ensures compatibility with games via like through Linux. So they're like creating a compatibility layer to make it easier to port games onto Mac, because I guess they're a little tired of like, dang, no one's releasing games on our platform. We really have no horse in that race if we want to entice people over to this platform. Like, if you're doing gaming, you're probably on a PC or console. You're probably not using your Mac to game.
One thing I remember with like porting to Mac, one of our teachers, or some of our teachers, actually do have a Mac for some work-related things. And I know in the first semester I tried porting to Mac, and then sent it to one of the teachers, and once he started the game, it just crashed his PC, completely froze it.
Oh my god.
And I tried fixing some things, like it didn't give me an error in Unity, or everything seemed fine. Then I sent him a second version, and once again, just completely froze. Then I thought, maybe I'm not gonna port to Mac anytime soon, unless I really want to figure out like what went wrong, because I didn't get any feedback from Unity if something in the build was wrong. Like in my eyes, everything was working fine.
That's the main problem, is that unless you have your Unity sort of set up as part of a pipeline to like rapidly iterate and test on a Mac platform, you just can't really ensure that there's going to be that compatibility. So it can get annoying to try to, like, if you're disconnected from your ability to test and verify and make those changes. So, you were just mentioning before about how you liked writing lore for games, and I think it's appropriate that Dark Demon Gamers asked the question of, is there lore to this game? Because we saw the description on the itch.io page, but it doesn't feel like that got too far into what I would describe as lore. So do you have anything in your mind?
We did have an idea for some lore at like the last day. Like there was some discussion about like, this is the itch.io page say what's it called, arcade machine, and the lore is like, here you enter an abandoned building and find this weirdly glowing arcade machine, and then you have to start the game, you're sucked into it, and suddenly you have all these elemental powers. But just to escape the like arcade machine, you have to find a portal out, and that's why you're flying around in this world. But it was like just last day short discussion stuff, and we were all tired, so didn't really get included in the game. It was just crunching the game to get it finished, and the lore part kind of didn't get explored further. So the description's just, here's the gameplay in some fancy words.
Yeah, I mean, that totally works. I think that you did the right thing in terms of prioritizing just getting the game complete. Like, obviously, if it's a game gen, you only have so much time to focus on these things. It's going to be more important for your semester projects to have everything more thorough and complete like that, right?
One thing with prioritizing, one thing we did this jam was, usually we plan with Magma Studio to sketch together, and then Trello. And this time we added a new Trello category to our list for the nice to have ideas that are not planned or approved by the team, but just like, here, any idea, just write them down, and we can meet up later in the day when everyone is there to like discuss how possible these ideas are.
Yeah. I think it's a great way of approaching things, because it's something that I always have in my game jam docs. It's just a little section that is that nice to have. Just because, you don't know, like sometimes there is just a little bit of time left towards the end for including those kind of things.
Yeah, for example, one of the biggest nice to have things was the leaderboard, but we couldn't manage to get it in. But that's why I took the extra day yesterday and learned how to make this.
Nice.
So speaking of the leaderboard, this was actually pretty easy. I wanted to post a video into the resources thing, because it's an about 15-minute long video to understand how everything works code-wise.
Oh wow!
And the website is also just really like user-friendly. You don't have to sign in or anything. You just get your unique private key, public key, and then the website handles everything for you. Limits are in the free non-subscription or user version, you get a maximum of 25 scores saved to the website.
I mean, let's be honest. You can configure it so it's the top 25, right?
That is also automatically configured. If a new score enters and the limit is reached, the most bottom score is erased from the leaderboard. So it kind of works out of the box. You don't have to manage the data. The site does everything. And also the code aspect is basically just you send one web request and the site handles the rest.
Nice. And then in terms of displaying the code in the game or displaying the high score, like how do you get like a data back, like in a table or like a Java?
Yes, you can request different types of data types. You can JSON, XML, just a long string with slashes that separate the different datas.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm posting this in resources.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like, I think it's an often underlooked sorry, it's just kind of a loud background noise. That's really neat though that there is just this like all-in-one solution for getting. Oh yeah, of course I've seen. Of course I know the Coding Adventures channel, but I had not. I don't think I've gone this far back in his videos. I'm glad that this video being 8 years old, I'm glad that this service still exists and is applicable. That's really cool.
And also the Dreamlow website, which handles the scores, really isn't pretty. It's functional. But there's no graphic design here, especially if you click on the Get Yours Now button. Like the way the scores are handled.
Oh, God. Man, graphic design is my passion, right?
Yes. But it works.
Yeah, absolutely it works. And then that's all you need is like the absolute basics just to get a high score system into the game. I mean, yeah, that's fantastic. I love that it's so easy. And obviously integrates it with Unity quite easily. So, I wonder if GameMaker can handle it, because a GameMaker can make web requests, but the API might be like just too old, or GameMaker might be too old to interact with the API properly. Maybe. I'll have to look into it.
It's just really simple. Just it's not even interacting with the web request. Just the link you send inputs the data.
Yeah, so I'll maybe mess around with it, because having a built-in high score feature for some of the games that I work on could be fun. All right. So I guess in terms of the game itself, like, what kind of feedback have you been getting on the game so far?
The feedback so far was either it was overwhelmingly hard, or it was so easy that we had to introduce a more difficult mode. So yeah, it's either most people are just overwhelmed by it, but I think it's because there's so much stuff happening, like when you first join the game, like 4 elements, element effectiveness, then the ultimate ability. But once you kind of master that, it quickly gets a lot easier, and that's why we added the hard mode. Where actually there's a difficulty scaling. If you do nothing in the game, it takes about 5 minutes to reach the maximum difficulty. For every enemy you kill, it's about like surviving 1 second of difficulty, so it skips you a tiny bit ahead. And then once the maximum difficulty is reached, it starts introducing more hardcore modifiers. Like if you reach the double amount of difficulty, the health drops chance gets lower and stuff like that. Or if you reach the triple difficulty modifier, like a triple beyond, enemies start shooting faster.
Oh my gosh. So there are some sort of plateaus in the difficulty where things just get like suddenly substantially more difficult.
Yes, there's the in code it's called the hard mode, and then the ultra hard mode. The two like major changes in difficulty and milestones. And that's why we had to add the hard mode, because especially as like the developer and having played this game the entire week and playtesting every little change, I've gotten pretty good at it. So we had to make the hard mode harder because it got boring for us who played it every day. For example, in the scores, Mike got so good at the game that he managed to survive about 40 minutes and then died because he just got exhausted from gaming.
Oh yeah.
So basically, even the hardest difficulty couldn't face him anymore.
Yeah, I know that. I know that feeling. Like it's so hard to balance something just right. Like I was working on a tower defense game quite a while ago, and I had that feeling of like, okay, well, the game is so easy right now that I can basically just play it forever. And I remember how great it felt the first time that the game was actually so difficult that I lost, specifically because it wasn't just, oh, I made it like insanely hard, therefore I lost right away. It felt like it was the right level of challenge. Like, oh, okay, I had a good like 5-minute play session in this, and then it overwhelmed me. I didn't just lose all because I wasn't because there was too much going on. Like it was just, yeah, it was a very satisfying feeling to have that sense of, hey, I did a good job. I balanced this game well, and now I'm losing because it's actually a fun and interesting challenge. Mm-hmm. So I do feel like balance is one of those things that you could spend forever on if given the time. But that being said, how do you find the difficulty now that you've made those changes?
I like the difficulty, but also speaking of difficulty, it's like you yourself cannot really balance the game, as you know the game like in and out. So for like real balancing, you need a lot of play testers, and also like every major changes or like every interval or like every week, you have to change your play testers, because then the play testers also get good enough that the challenge becomes gradually easier. So
yeah, it's very true.
That is hard as well. Just you have to get fresh play testers every so often.
Yeah.
So they don't get too skilled.
All right, we just got a resubscription from Lurk Nautilai, also at the 23 months. Thank you so much for your support. How have you been doing? We are taking a look at Dr. Tonic's game, as you might have seen posted in the Discord. So super appreciate the support. How are you doing? Just finished your run? Like, outdoor run, I assume? By the way, I don't know if anyone is necessarily aware of this, but like, all of Canada is on fire, so I have to like keep the windows shut because there's too much smoke from all the forest fires and everything. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I'm not used to that. It's scary.
Yeah, like I'm not used to having to deal with forest fires. Just it's more of like a West Coast thing than it is. Like I'm just, yeah, this is it's weird to go outside and like smell burning smoke or burning trees and smoke and everything.
Not that that's pretty lit. From luck.
I mean, as a matter of speaking,
I don't have a fire emoji in Twitch.
There's I remember seeing a headline on TV that said wildfires burning out of control, and I was like, you don't say.
But I can redeem hydrate.
Oh man. So yeah, I mean, thankfully, like it's not too bad where I live, but it's just crazy to encounter that at all. So yeah, like right now where I'm at, the bullet pattern in the game feels like it just went crazy. Like there are so many enemies on the screen right now. I feel like I always make it to roughly this point of like 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
But new high score. Wait, is 22,000? How far is that? Is that still like second last?
Yes, I'm still not cracking that 27,000.
Ah.
And there's these. I'm not as far away from it as I first was. I think the first time I got a score of like 17,000. So now I'm like a little closer, and then there's an entire doubling.
Wait, Mike beat my score by like what?
That's absurd.
Oh, okay, I gotta write him a message later.
Hang on. That's so by 100,000 points, but doubled your playtime. That's crazy.
Half an hour survival time, like with the crazy modifiers.
Yeah.
At 5 minutes, you didn't even reach the hardest difficulty.
Yeah, no. Yes, Lurk Not a Lie. Actually, we just had a whole conversation. You should check out the resources channel in the Discord, because Dr. Tronek just posted a video from the Coding Adventures YouTube channel that shows how this was implemented and used, and then the link to the super janky, like, graphic design is my passion website where you can see how it works. But it's just, yeah, it's I mean, what matters is it's free, right? So
it's free, it works, it's easy to implement.
Yeah.
The code aspect, like even the video, in 8 minutes you basically got everything you need to know to get started. But also a word of warning, the leaderboard is not secure or anything. Just I gave it to one of my friends, and like half an hour later he came with a hacked score on the leaderboard, like a -1 score with a definitely real username.
oh my god,
So it's not really secure, but that's also probably because
it's free.
the code for the website, or like your private code, is just saved as a plain string in the code, so it's probably easy to find.
Of course it is. Oh my god.
But yeah, if you want to, it's pretty easy to just get the private code and enter a custom code to the website, like a custom score.
Yeah, I've seen that with a few of these different online score solutions, but oh, Lurk Not a Lie, I'm sorry to hear that not many people from your previous jam teams have been interested. But have you tried the team finder for JMTK? Tested if too many people played and got a high score, it goes off screen. Oh yeah. Did you format enough space on the screen here, Dr. Tronix, for like 25 names to fill up the space?
Yes, the formatting. It's not 25, I kept it at 20, are just shown here. So
okay.
Then it just doesn't stop displaying scores.
It just truncates
So only
it.
the top 20 scores are shown, and there's enough space for that. Because sadly, 4 scores are some going behind the button then.
Yeah, I mean, I think that works just fine. Like, you don't... It's beyond the scope of this implementation to implement a scroll rect just so you can see the list of scores if it happens to be larger than a certain size.
Yeah, and also the scroll rectangle wouldn't really be worth it, considering that it's only like 4 scores that wouldn't be able to be shown.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that would have been necessary. There isn't a resolution setting in this game, it's just the volume options.
Yeah, there's no really... It works on multiple resolutions, and you can also just enter windowed mode with like Alt-Enter.
Yeah.
Or was it Alt-Enter?
Yeah, Alt-Enter is the shortcut to do that. Because I guess, are you just scaling the UI size dynamically?
Yeah, the like basic Unity functions of canvas scaling with the height of the screen. Because scaling UI is also always a pain, or like a lot of things can break.
Yeah, exactly. You just scale the entire canvas. So what's the native resolution of the actual game?
The native resolution is the standard HD, and then also when I first made the first playtest build and gave it to our teammates, I also added some widescreen format as a like this is tested with this resolution.
Mhm.
I don't remember what resolution it is, but yeah, it's tested on standard HD, 4K, and some other weird widescreen resolution.
Oh, like ultra wide, you mean?
It wasn't ultra wide. It's something in between, like
Oh,
half
like
ultra
you.
wide.
Oh, okay. Because there's also the like my monitor, which is 1440p, and it seems to be working just fine on here. But yeah, I think that's generally like I've seen so many game jam projects fail because people build it for their native resolution and then they export it to someone else's computer. It's like, oh man, it's too big, too small, and everything is like tiny or too big or buttons going off the screen or who knows what.
I have like with the resolution thing, to play test a lot of resolutions. I made a window build that's specifically like you can resize it any way you want, and so we could test out like any resolution works. But there was also a joke build because in the jam I found out that you can actually control the window position where it is in the screen. And I have a video of that, I think. Oh yeah, I found it. Okay, I can post that into... I'm just gonna post it into memes. In the midst of testing resolutions, I found out this is possible.
I'll open it in a second. Okay, into memes, you said?
Yes.
Are you moving the entire window while you're playing?
Yes, the window is now the player character. Depending on where the window's on your screen, the player character is like relative to the play field.
Oh, that's funny. How did you get it to do that?
I basically copied some code of Stack Overflow.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't just like an easy auto implement thing. It was just happened to be.
It's not. It didn't look that difficult, but because it was just a joke idea, I didn't spend much time actually fleshing out any idea.
Yeah, I don't think that playing the entire game like that would probably be kind of nauseating.
It was just like I made that in secret and then gave that as a new playtest build to our group, and then seeing their reactions like, what is happening?
No, it's a fun prank. I'm glad you had an opportunity to just get a little silly with it. Yeah, I think my reaction would be, what? Why is this happening? Okay. Well, I didn't really get around to asking my standard interview questions because we've just been chatting this whole time, but do you want to talk a little bit about the actual development process of the game, like how it went?
The actual development process was first we had a like team meeting before the jam started to like get to know each other and align like our goals, what we all want from the jam. I think that's also really important. Like, do you want to make a really good jam game, or do you want to focus on learning things? And just like getting everyone on board. Something that I also think is important, especially for the first semesters, is telling them that they don't need to be like scared of the jam. Or a lot of them like just outright tell, so, in the first semester I know nothing. Like they're basically telling, like, or like saying to themselves that they're gonna be useless in the team, and that's the first thing I also wanna just tell them all. Like, you don't have to be good at anything. It's just what do you want to do in the team, not what are you good at. So I think that's always important. Yeah, and then once the jam began and the theme was magical stuff, I don't think I've actually told that. We got together and started sketching. The like usual plan is theme is announced, we get together in the group, and then we just have 20 minutes of like everyone is muted and thinks of ideas, and after that we start sketching ideas of like what our ideas are. And then we start combining multiple ideas. Like I had the idea of a bullet hell, but not this kind of bullet hell. And then also other people had the idea of bullet hell, and kind of while we were discussing what a bullet hell even is, because some people in our team have never played a bullet hell game, we kind of got more and more ideas, and everyone just got on board with let's do a bullet hell game. So that idea of like 4 elements and switch just came naturally while discussing ideas. And usually that happens if we just discuss a lot of ideas. Some things just sticks even before we're finished with presenting all the ideas. Yeah, and after that, it was time to split the roles. Like who does what, who focuses on like specific parts. For example, the player character was done by one person, by Gina, and setting some deadlines like until Thursday this and this has to be done, and then we can delegate further tasks. And also, once again, I was the only coder in the group, but I handled it pretty well. It's more intimidating each year having more and more artists on my side and not a secondary coder.
Dr. Tronic, grace under pressure.
But it works every jam. So yeah, getting pretty confident in I can carry a team when it comes to coding.
That's fantastic.
And also benefit of coding alone is I don't have to write any comments, or my code doesn't really have to make sense. Only I need to understand.
Oh yeah, standard game jam code. By the way, I just want to address a question here from Dark Demon Gamer. What would a team do if like no one specializes in art? Is it just a matter of like do your best, or do they try to organize the team such that there's somebody of every discipline and skill?
The teachers have one specialist in every group. Like I'm usually the specialist when it comes to coding. Then there's usually one specialist when it comes to art, and someone who's like proficient in sound. And the rest just then does their best if there's no specialist or they aren't really sure what their specialty is yet.
Yeah, okay.
But the way teams are sorted is there's usually a specialist. And also in joining the jam, there's a form we fill out, like what our specialties are and what we want to do in the jam, and also who we want to have as partners in our jam. So that's also how they know what our specialties are.
By the way, what is influencing the difference between the drops for the Radiant versus the Void energy?
The more Radiant power you already have, the higher the chance that the new ultimate drop is a Radiant charge, and vice versa.
Okay, because I was noticing some situations where like I would pick up something and then just only see drops of the other kind. I'm like, oh, I was kind of trying to save towards something. I wasn't sure if there was an underlying mechanic of you, like if you defeat something with the element that it's weak against, then it's Radiant, and if you defeat something with the element that it's strong against, then it's Void, or something like that. But it's just whatever you sort of started building towards?
Yes, it's if you have no, if like in the middle, it's a coin flip, and the further it goes to one side, the more the chances is that if it would be a Void drop, but you have like almost full Radiant, then there's an extra chance of like, yeah, let's convert that to Radiant.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that it lets you kind of build towards something. I seem to be getting 5 minutes and 30 seconds almost every single time. It seems like I get this far. That's my limit in terms of the skill when it comes to playing this game. I assume Lurk not a lie. I'm just looking at the chat now. I'm assuming your comments about sacrilege and can't do write-only code hurts too much is the idea of not fully commenting everything. Because, yeah, I mean, I get that. I understand that in the context of a jam, it's hard to make time to add comments, like especially if it's a 2-day jam like the GMTK.
Yeah, usually when it comes to jam code, the first day, usually my code is clean and uses I have some established rules, like for myself, how I organize my code, and like the basic structures that good coding practices, but then the last, or like one day before the last day, is just like, if it works, it works. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Or just even the last day, it's like, okay, this thing needs this little specific functionality. Just slap another code script on there and make like one code line. It's really awful code, but I'm never gonna look at it again. So I think that's fine for a jam, especially in like the final hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on your objectives from the jam, right? Like, Lurk Not a Lie is mentioning that I'd rather fail a jam and have, like, well-picked variable names and clear algorithms. But, again, if your objective is to finish the game above all else, then it makes sense that, obviously, you would prioritize not worrying about code comments and so forth.
Yeah, clean code and, like, good coding practices is something I try to include in my semester projects, but not in jams. At least not in the later half of the jam. The first half is like the foundation needs to be good, but the final stages I don't have that much importance on like readable or clean code.
By the way, Dark Demon Gamer is saying something about being able to cheese the game by going against the edge of the screen. I'm not sure what you mean, because it looks like the bullet patterns cover the whole screen pretty well. Can you think of a way that you would cheese the game by staying near the edge of the screen? Or which edge?
The edges are dangerous. If you're at the left or right side of the edge, there are enemies that come from the edges at the highest difficulty setting, or like at the highest difficulty scale.
Yeah.
I guess the best way to cheese is, I mean, if you're staying at the edges, you can't really get a high score. You only get score for killing enemies.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a good way to cheese.
Yeah, I didn't intrinsically see a way to do it. I just wasn't sure if you were aware of anything.
I was thinking about it, but I'm not aware of anything either. Maybe there is. I gotta ask Mike later how he got that 160,000 score.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I can only imagine how long that... Well, I mean, it took... I know exactly how long it took. It says over half an hour. But I can't imagine having the diligence to play through the game non-stop for a full half hour to achieve a score like that.
Oh, Dark Demon Gamer means for the best time score. I mean, yeah, you could cheese the best time with that. That is true. Usually the enemies from the edges are water enemies, so you could cheese best time with that. But the best time does not affect your standing in the leaderboard. It's just like an extra statistic of how fast did you get that score.
Yeah, it's actually a bit of a checksum almost, because you can sort of, like, you'd be very surprised if somebody got a high score in a low time. Like, obviously there's the possibility of getting a low score in a high time, as we mentioned, if you're just going for survival, but you're not going to place very high on the leaderboard if you're doing that. Still, 100,000 points more than you. I mean, how much does the score multiplier get? Because if Mike was only playing for twice as long as you, it seems kind of surprising that
there is no score multiplier.
There's no score multiplier?
There's no score multiplier. It's just brute force score that he got 100,000 points more.
Well, okay, but that's what I'm saying, is that seems a little interesting, don't you think? That he managed to get a score that is a full 100,000 points more than you by only playing twice as long. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think it was more than twice as long, but yeah, that's what I want to ask him.
It's
the thing is,
more
he
than
plays
twice
a lot of bullet hells, so he's kind of a professional at this kind of genre.
Well, I don't need to be...
He designed all the enemy waves, so he actually knows what the enemy wave patterns is. He's the one that designed them all.
Yeah, I don't need to cast dispersions. I'm just like, I'm legitimately wondering, like, wow, if the score is a full 100,000 more, then how did he manage to get a score that's that much higher?
Yeah, I'm genuinely wondering as well. But just like theorizing, like he probably knows the waves. He's He has everything in his head
Yeah.
where the best spots are. Who knows? Who knows? I'm curious
Well.
because before we started the stream, I was 10,000 points above him, and I already thought I was doing pretty well.
Oh my gosh.
And now during the stream, he just overtook by a landslide.
Yeah, just about 5 minutes every single time is the best I can manage to do. Okay, so did we interrupt the development process, or is there more that you wanted to say about that?
I don't think there was more I wanted to say.
Okay, then how about just this this last question then? What was the most difficult problem you encountered during the jam, and what was your solution?
The most difficult problem. I think the most difficult problem this jam was with 7 people. There were more miscommunications than usual. Especially the UI part had a lot of miscommunications. So there was a lot of back and forth of what we needed in the game for UI and what got delivered, and then there was a small back and forth, and nobody was really on the same page of how far are we with UI and what is the logo idea. So I think that was the most difficult thing. Just if we had to take an entire day or like entire hour of like, okay, what is what page are we on? What are like or what are we doing with the logo, the UI? So that was a small problem. I think it was just the biggest problem team-wise. I don't think if there was another big problem. But yeah, that's the one that stood out at least. A somewhat bigger communication error when it comes to UI. But we got it sorted out at the end. It just took some time getting everyone on the same page.
Yeah. No, I think that's ultimately like taking the time to get everyone on the same page is always going to be worthwhile. And just time is at such a premium when you're working under the constraints of a jam. So actually, Dark Demon Gamer was asking, did you create a Discord group to talk to each other, or how did you do the communication with each other?
The main communication is the school Discord, when the event starts, opens up a voice channel for every team. So that's usually where we meet, and if we're working on it, we're sitting in the call. Even if we're not currently in like a mood of talking or like socially exhausted, we just dive ourselves the call, but just like we're here, and if you need me, you can write me a message style. And then also we have a private Discord group where we post progress and checklists and stuff.
Yeah, okay, I think that makes sense. Yeah, because I've always thought about like how do you coordinate things with a large team like that? Because I guess there's a bit of a sense of if everyone just does their own thing, sort of stays in their own lane, then it's not too bad. As you were saying, like being the only programmer on the project, it's not too difficult to manage the project because you don't have to worry about making sure your code is legible to somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. And then there were also, for example, Gina took more of the role of, let's say, supervisor, or like managing our 3 first semesters in the group. And that's also in the credits. She's credited as the group mom because she kind of took care of the first semesters and like gave some art tips, made sure they all stay in the right artistic direction when it comes to picking a color palette and like just saying which color style we're staying at. Like group mom Gina is in the stream right now.
Yeah.
Also, there are some joke credits like I'm the GitHub tamer because there was some merge conflicts and everyone panicked. Or like mostly I panicked, but I got it sorted out.
No, that's good. Very true. Co-op multiplayer and high score, like local multiplayer is not hard to do. Dark Demon Gamer, anything that's involving netcode and actually making an online multiplayer it's like an entirely different sphere of programming. Like you can happily code all of your games in a non-netcode fashion, and then when it comes to actually programming stuff with netcode and having to deal with servers and deciding, which is your version of truth, and are you taking updates from the server before moving things, or is one player the server and everyone else is just a fake representation on their screen? Like it becomes such a nightmare. I've only gone through like the most basic of tutorials dealing with netcode. It's so many more headaches than I would want to deal with in a game project.
Netcode can be painful. I have already 2 failed projects to prove that. But I do have a working project that is on pause because of the semester. But I do have a working first-person shooter prototype thing.
Oh, awesome. Yeah,
so I do want to make a online first-person shooter, just like a small fun game, because I always wanted to make an online game, but it's very hard.
I think the only game project I ever made with networking was literally like a game maker tutorial project, and it feels awesome when you have 2 computers sitting side by side, and it's like, look, I moved the character on this screen and it moves on your screen. Like it feels really cool. It's just mind-bending to get it to work the way you expect.
Yeah, and trying to figure out what bugs are happening on 2 PCs at the same time is also really painful. And the most ridiculous bugs can happen, like things that I didn't think should be possible have occurred while testing online multiplayer.
Yeah. And Dark Demon Gamer, just to clarify, like there are tools, like Unity especially has published some tools recently, which I have not looked at, that handle some of the insanity of netcode for you. But there's still a lot to wrap your brain around. We're going to be some ways away. I'm not saying it's impossible, but we are still going to be some ways away from a true like plug and play solution, just by nature of the fact that there's a lot of infrastructure you need for supporting an online game. Like you need a server, you need client PCs to be able to connect to an online game and thread all their traffic through it. So it's basic multiplayer games are really easy with Unreal Engine. Yeah, I have not tinkered with Unreal multiplayer at all, so I wouldn't know. But I just know that Unity had made some strides within the last few years of trying to simplify netcode. So, yeah, I guess that's about all I have to say on that. Dr. Tronic, do you have any closing thoughts?
Just closing thoughts to the topic of online games. If I work more on my online shooter, maybe I can present that here as well. If that reaches a good prototype stage.
Yeah, we can make a community playdate out of it and try to get some other people involved, like we did with Chitori's game. Or
yeah, we could do that, but the first prototype would probably not really be a game, just a demo. It works. I got online to work, and I'm happy.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, that would be awesome to get a version where we could actually make a community game night.
Yeah. Oh, we've got one last question here from Dark Demon Gamer about where did you come up with the light and dark elements?
I don't remember how we got that idea. We just had the idea of something ultimate, and in terms of color, we had pitch black and pure white, and we thought with pitch black, void was the obvious solution. Just I had the idea to suck up every enemy on the screen, and I think that's where also Radiance developed as the opposite to Void. Void sucks every bullet in, and Radiance shoots a ton of bullets at every enemy on the screen. So that's the main difference. Is Void is the ultimate power of getting every bullet inside you, and then Radiance is shooting as many bullets outward as possible.
I see. And yeah, I also just pulled up my game from the last GMTK Jam that I made with my friend Ferrosphere, because we also sort of settled on a 6-element, because it was a die, we wanted to illustrate the fact that there are 6 possibilities for what element you could have, and that's why, I don't know, light and void just kind of naturally come up. I think, you've got the 4 classical elements, and then light and void. I don't know if you really think about it too much. They just sort of they just kind of make sense. Is what most people think of when they try to append 2 to the system. I think even Fire Emblem has like light and dark magic as separate from their regular magic triangle or weapon triangle. They have an equivalent of the triangle for magic. Anyway, wonder what percent of people went with the D6. I think it's the most. I have to assume the majority of people went with the D6 because it's what most people think of when they think of a die. Not as many people are into tabletop gaming with the various platonic solids. I mean, even calling it a D6 is a very like D&D tabletop centric way of thinking about it, right?
True. I think most people just call it the normal dice in quotations.
I'm willing to bet that most people. I think a disappointingly small amount of people are even aware of the concept of platonic solids. Like, as much as it's a really neat, like, math nerd kind of like, oh, it's so cool that there are this small subset of shapes that are each made of regular polyhedrons or polygons. Well, I think they are polyhedrons. Anyway, I'm a fake math nerd. You can tell I'm not using the words right. But I know it's possible to construct other valid dice that are not platonic solids. Like the D10 is famously not a platonic solid. But it's useful, so... Yeah, and I don't even own a set of actual dice other than a D6 from probably a board game that we have, because I've played lots of D&D, but it's always been with friends online. So... Anyway, we are definitely getting into a bit of a tangent here. Dr. Tronic, thank you so much for joining me on the call. I should give some thoughts. I should give some feedback on the game before we wrap things up properly. I think the game overall is a lot of fun. I think maybe the single thing that I can tell that I would describe as missing from the project is a bit of game juice. Just having things be a little more like... Sorry, not to say that it's lacking. Like, you've got particles, you've got trails, you've got a lot of like fancy visualizations, but I'm thinking just some more sense of impact. Like, maybe it is just screen shake, but I don't know if it's the...
Maybe.
I say that, but then I immediately think like, well, I'd be one of the people that just turn screen shake off. But just something that makes things feel a little more impactful. And I'm having trouble even articulating exactly what that would be. But like, you know, you've got a good balance of like music and sound effects and particle little poofs when enemies die.
I think when it comes to like game juice, some things we could probably improve upon is getting the sprites to be more dynamic. For example, the player leaning into the velocity of like when you move to the left or right. Or the sprites now, or the enemies are currently just like statically basically falling. Maybe that could add to the game feel everything a bit more dynamic without being too chaotic.
Yeah, it's tricky. I guess the you know, ultimately you're in a pretty good position when it's hard for me to say like what any single thing I would improve on. I think that although it's a weird thing to say, but I think that the only bit of art that doesn't fit well is the UI. That I just think that the UI looks like it could just be for any game. It doesn't feel like it's specific to this one. Like if it looked more like it was stone or just something like more like thematically resonant with the concept of elements, that might make a bit of a difference. And again, that's not feedback I'm giving to you specifically, because I know that you weren't the one who did the art for the UI and such. And I know that Gina, who was on here earlier, did the artwork for the character. So I'm not even sure which member of your team I'm addressing when I'm saying that the UI art doesn't feel like it quite fits with the rest of the project. It's one of the only things that stands out, you know. I think it's also noticeable because the UI is a different color than all the elements that are being used in the game, and that makes sense to some degree, but I don't know, the fact that it's like a framed border around all edges of the screen, like, I don't know if that is... I don't know why it looks that way necessarily. Like, it seems like the only thing you need is the UI along the bottom edge of the screen, so...
Yeah, that was, like, as I told, like, before, UI was a big source of miscommunication.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's kind of why we ended up with that UI.
It looks like the character's movement speed is consistent. Like, I'm assuming you normalized the vector, right?
Should be.
It doesn't
I
look
think-
like it moves faster
I
on the
think I did
diagonals.
that. That was something of the first things.
It's
If
literally...
it isn't, it wouldn't surprise me, maybe, but I think I normalized it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a common thing people forget to do. Like, in my day job, there is a camera controller where the like professional developer, the guy who makes 6 figures programming for a crypto company, forgot to normalize the vector for the camera. So just to put that in perspective, like, it happens.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, but to the UI thing, if we noticed, like, if we would have noticed earlier that the like our goal with the UI was miscommunicated, we probably would have ended up with a different one. But we made the choice that we have this arcade style UI. We're gonna double down on the arcade style and make it look like you're in an arcade machine.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, I guess if you'd had time to include the framing narrative of being like in an arcade, then it would make sense that the game actually has this arcade framing around it.
Yeah, so that's we kind of just then double down on the the border does not look organic or like magical, so we double down on the this is a screen, you're in an arcade game.
Yeah. So when you trigger your ultimate ability, does collecting more drops do anything, or is it it's kind of a waste?
It does nothing.
Okay, because I can imagine either prolonging the current ability, or when you activate the ability, it drains it, and then you just need to, like, collecting them starts refilling it. But I was always trying to avoid picking those up when I went into when I actually activated the ultimate. So, yeah, I guess in terms of the like actual balance of the game, I mean, I think that there are a lot of small changes that would make it easier for my brain to understand, like, if projectiles were of a uniform color. Like, I know that enemies shoot 2 different types of fire projectiles, right? Like, I think everything shoots 2 different colors of the same projectile. Like, there are blue projectiles that you shoot and blue projectiles that enemies, and 2 types of... Yeah, I can see them. I think these are different. Like, the jellyfish shoots slightly different colors. They look like little blobs. And then the birds spit out these different things. I think that the palette and the patterning on those is generally well done, but it is maybe like actually a small source of it requires just a little bit of extra parsing in my brain to distinguish between these things. So when I mentioned the game Ikaruga, like way back at the beginning of the stream, one thing that does is all the projectiles on the screen are just 2 colors, and it's much easier to flip back and forth between them. And I think that the overall like simplicity of Ikaruga worked in its favor in a way that having to switch between 4 different elements is interesting, but ultimately makes for a game that is a bit more mechanically complex than which, like, that might be a good thing in terms of what you're looking for. I think in terms of approachability, right, it makes things a bit more difficult off the bat. Like, you were even mentioning how maybe it would be nice to, like, it might be a little overwhelming to have 4 different elements right at the very beginning of the game.
Mhm. Yeah, that is a with the projectiles. That is feedback that I also got from SK Vader. That as Dark Demon Gamer also said in the chat that the colors of the projectiles sometimes mix in with the background. So another idea I maybe had, if I would take like inspiration from Binding of Isaac. Binding of Isaac has a accessibility feature of higher visibility bullets, which just adds a glowing red outline to every bullet.
Right.
So that would also maybe be a possibility of how to just make the bullets more visible and make it clear that, okay, this is just avoid the bullets. But then I was thinking, how do I make it clear that if you fire, you can ignore the fire bullets?
Yeah.
And that's also something that's like hard to master, because especially when it gets chaotic, you just want to dodge every bullet. But you can just enter like water mode and then ignore every water enemy, like not the enemies itself, but the bullets. But that's also something that you kind of have to retrain yourself compared to traditional bullet hells.
I know that something that specifically I wasn't doing is the switching to an element to absorb bullets of a certain kind, because it's a way to avoid damage, but there's no. It's a way to avoid a negative incentive. There's no positive incentive to do it, well, other than just like surviving.
I've seen like as a positive incentive. I've seen when Mike streamed his play sessions, he did actually use that as aggressive as possible, just basically almost ramming because there's contact damage, but ramming the enemies, absorbing every bullet they just shot in their burst, and then switching to the opposite element and blasting them away. So, like using this defensive stance in the most aggressive way possible, of just ramming into every bullet to delete it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that you would see in Ikaruga, and it's just a little hard to do because, like, in the back of my mind, I'm still looking at the enemies and being like, okay, that's fire, so I have to switch to water. Well, that one's the easiest actually, but it's water. I have to switch to earth, and it's earth. I have to switch to air. Like for some reason, those were the two that I always forgot to do. Like somehow, when I see air enemies and I switch to fire, that was a little easier because it was almost like a Pokemon triangle, like fire beats grass, but it's not grass, it's air. Anyway, so it's just a matter of balancing the associations. And you can't, not in this game, you don't use, like the projectiles don't destroy other projectiles, right?
It's just when you're in the fire form, you absorb enemy fire projectiles.
Yes, if they collide with the player character, but not your fire bullets don't cancel out other air bullets.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's it's part of the difficulty of communicating, like building up towards this, right? Like at one point, Dark Demon Gamer was suggesting like having a tutorial. It's like, well, yeah, if it weren't a game jam, I'm sure you would have loved to have included a tutorial that more gradually introduced players to the different element types. They build up the associations.
Yeah, that would have been, especially for like having these more or less new concepts. I mean, it exists in other games, but like it's not the typical bullet hell experience. There would have been nice to have a tutorial instead of just a pop-up of here's the controls and here's how elements work, and then pressing understood or pressing spacebar to like let's go.
Yeah.
So a real tutorial would have been nice.
I mean, I think that the basic concept of a tutorial, like the basic concept of this game, is easy enough to grasp pretty quick. Like, I think that one thing that you could do is to remind the player of the fact that all the enemies have. Wait, don't they have animations?
They all have animations.
Yeah, the game was paused at this moment, but yeah, they all move just a little bit. So what I was going to say though is you could have when you are fire, for example, you could have bullets of that are dangerous to you, i.e., like all the other bullets, be a little brighter. Like this is working off of There's Not a Lie suggestion, and you could have fire bullets be sort of dim because you'll know that if you run into them, it doesn't matter. But it kind of visually cleans up the game a little bit because you don't have to, like, you're not spending brain power keeping an eye on fire bullets when the fire bullets don't hurt you. But on the other hand, as I'm suggesting that, I'm realizing that, like, okay, but then if you switch elements, then you might get hit by something that you didn't notice because it was dimmed out. So it's actually kind
that's the same thought that I had at the most.
Okay, yeah.
If
So it's tricky.
Still has to be obvious because you have to know, like, okay, I'm just safe because I'm in fire, in fire mode. If it's like looks too peaceful, then you might feel too safe and switch to an element and just get yourself killed.
Yeah. No, I think it's tricky, and the only way to really get around that is to balance the game difficulty curve such that the changing of elements and the frequency of how many elements occur at the same time really like ramps up slowly over time. Actually, so what is the current thing that determines how often you encounter different elements in the game?
The current thing is all the waves have a difficulty rating. And at the start, every wave just has one element. Like there's a wave will spawn and it's just purely earth elements, or the next wave will just be purely wind elements. And then as the harder waves get introduced with the harder difficulty scale, there will be waves that include 2 different elements at once, or 3 different elements at once. So that's kind of how it works.
Yeah,
At
so
the
it
start,
kind of...
it will be just single elements in a wave.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I think the last thing I might have liked to see is like there is a variety. I appreciate that like your bullets behave the same as the enemy bullets, and they all kind of follow similar structures. Water feels the most unique because it's the only one that actually shoots backwards. And then fire and earth. Yeah, it's fire and earth that seem very similar because they both have this sort of like burst fire. I know that the fire like spreads out and the earth doesn't, but they're not appreciably very different from each other. So I guess I'm just saying that as one other small bit of feedback, it might have been nice if those 2 bullet patterns had been just a little more distinct, but on the other hand, we know that trying to create complex bullet types is very tricky within the limited scope of the jam.
I mean, talking about the bullet patterns, it would be actually pretty easy to just define a new bullet pattern. Like every bullet pattern in the game shares the same script and is just changed by a couple of variables, like in the inspector. So it would be pretty easy to, for example, just make earth instead of shooting in front, just make it shoot left and right from you. So that is a pretty nice way to just balance things. That's also something we did the entire jam, just tweak the values a bit every playtest session.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good idea, just to make sure that you're sort of like checking your assumptions of like what in particular would you change, like all the values, or would you have some that are locked in and others that you would change?
When it comes to the bullet patterns, every value can be tweaked, from bullet speed to burst cooldown to how many bullets are in a burst. Like it's all changeable. Or like if the rotation is randomized, or if it's a fixed rotation for like the wind pattern.
Yeah, I just mean the like, was it only the bullet pattern data that you changed between play sessions, or did you try changing other things as well?
Oh, also the enemy health and the damage multipliers. Like how effective is if you hit with water against fire, how much extra damage they do, and the value we settled on was the triple amount of damage.
So when you're hitting like in alignment with the sort of cycle there, you're doing 3 times the damage that you normally are.
Yes, it does. Like and clockwise, like effectiveness,
yeah.
it does triple damage.
I just want to address some of the comments we're getting. So Lurk Not Ally mentions that if you run a grayscale over this, you'll notice most of the is sort of midtones. Yeah, I can sort of see that without even. It is a great exercise though, as I came up on the Discord recently with the character sprite that I was working on. Making Earth fire slower but having larger projectile shots. Yeah, that's an option. I was thinking of like treating Earth like a wall of projectiles, but I know that air kind of spreads out. It just has its behavior of like moving slowly. So I'm not super big into shoot 'em up, so I don't have the best suggestions for what to do. It's just something that I noticed. Yeah, using up more of the available color space would have been great. Something about this game is reminiscent of Lero? I'm not familiar with that one. But I did notice the timing. My goodness, it has been a very long and great conversation, but I think we gotta do a raid. I gotta get started on dinner. But Dr. Tonic, thank you so much for sharing your game. Congratulations on your 3rd place win. And yeah, I look forward to seeing I guess your semester project is going to be finished next, right? Not another jam?
Yes, the semester project is the next focus.
All right, well, best of luck on that, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, bye for now.
Then goodbye. And thanks for having me once again. Was fun, a fun stream.
Absolutely. Okay, bye for now.